Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remus.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson with you, Remo away. Shout out to our pal Andrew Z for doing some great work behind the scenes, making sure the show is on the air, looking good. And, of course, we'll bring in the Wonder Boy himself, Hrabchak, in just a couple minutes, and we'll have a little bit of fun getting you ready for the rest of the show. We're, of course, diving into the week in the Canadian Football League. Justin Dunk of 3 Down Nation will join me at the bottom of the hour to kick around all the big topics in the CFL. And as we mentioned yesterday, the new CFL 110 is live. Thanks to everyone that joined us live this morning, actually. We got that going live this morning at 9 on the channel, and we had a lot of people pop in. It was very nice to see on sort of an unplanned live show in the morning. But if you missed it, make sure to check it out. Love your feedback on the CFL 110 show. Give a thumbs up to this show as well. And if you are checking out CFL 110, let us know what you think. Leave a comment on the video. We will be looking forward to welcoming in Mike McIntyre as well. Now, Mike, of course, if you caught yesterday's show, Connor and I were out at Breezy Bend ahead of the Manitoba Open next week, where we'll be doing shows starting on Tuesday throughout the rest of the week, which is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Mike was there getting the lowdown on the upcoming tournament, and then Mike actually went out and played afterwards. So I am looking forward to seeing how his round is. As someone that plays Breezy all year long, I can tell you that they are toughing it up because we've got some of the best around coming to Winnipeg next week to play in the Manitoba Open. And I know they've got 8 new greens and 6 new tee boxes. Incredible work at Breezy Bend over the last number of years. But these guys are good. And we'll be seeing some really low scores, potentially a new course record. And so we'll see how Mike's round went and if he was able to keep it in the short stuff. I am going to play the course on Sunday, right before it gets to tournament time. So Monday, I'll have a report on just how ugly it was out there for average to below average golfers playing on what the is going to be the setup for the PGA Tour Americas event here in Manitoba. So Mike's going to come on, and then a real treat. This is sort of that slow time in August. We're waiting for hockey training camps next week to get going, but there is a lot of excitement for the start of the NFL season. And of course, no one better to talk about that than Gabe Morency, Sports Rage himself. Gabe's going to join me coming up at the bottom of hour 2 of the program. So buckle up for that one. It is always fun when Gabe Morency joins the program. So we'll get right into that. Big Jays win last night. Some news on the Bombers lineup for tomorrow after their closed practice yesterday. Connor and I will touch on that in just a minute. Hey, before we do that, welcome to everybody, and thanks again for joining us. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. And do want to give a big thank you to the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Rolly's Transfer, Manitoba Battery, St. Vital Dental Center and Canadian Club, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, F Apparel, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug, Assiniboia Downs back in action tonight with some live racing. The Winnipeg Goldeyes, big 2-0 win last night over Cleburne. They're back at it tonight down at the ballpark. And of course, Breezy Bend, the host of next week's Manitoba Open. We will get to a why not question of the day for not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray. And as always, fan feedback from all of you, courtesy of fansfirst.ca. Let's get her going, and welcome back Connor Hrabchak to the program. Connor, great stuff today. Excellent edition of CFL 110. We were extra prepared today for that one, and it was a good one, though. You know what? I joke with Dusty on the Lock Shop that if there was ever a CFL 110 that we were going to double up on, this was the week to do it, because there was so many interesting and awesome stories to talk about coming out of last week as we get ready to turn it around quickly for a Thursday night game, 10 straight sellout tomorrow, and a massive game for the Bombers and the Ottawa Redblacks.
I do just want to say I love Dusty's reaction when you told him what happened on the lock shop this morning. He went full 2 hands on the head. No, oh my goodness.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
We've all been there. Yeah. But hey, second time, redeemed myself this morning. Go check out CFL 110. Leave a comment on how great Hustler and Jeff sound, specifically with the audio issues that we had yesterday. But we're back. CFL 110 was a great one. Credit to you guys for being able to, talk for that long. I know it was a great week in the CFL, but still going back to back, pretty impressive, and fired up to be here breaking down this Bomber game. We got a depth chart. Blue Jays with a big win last night. Glad to be here talking about it with you, Huss.
Yeah, don't. And by the way, I'm just seeing One Bird Oak Fun guy, not a big NFL guy, however, fired up for the CEBL championship weekend next weekend as the August continues on. That he hasn't been to a Seabears game, but bought championship game tickets. The semis, which is going to be, I guess, a week. I don't even know what today's Wednesday. Today's Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
A week tomorrow is the semifinals, and of course the Seabears right now, Connor, kicking back, waiting to see what happens in the rest of the CEBL playoffs. If you want more information on that, One Bird, or any of your other anyone else, Slats joined us on Monday, kind of recapping the regular season for the Seabears, and looking to just talk about the games that'll be happening this week. But it's going to be a fun weekend in Winnipeg next week. I mean, we've got there's a lot going on between the Manitoba Open out at Breezy, the CEBL championship weekend, and of course the Bombers will be on the road. But tomorrow, Connor, let's start off with the blue and gold, because that, I'm sure, is anxiety levels are a little higher after what happened last week. And we did see a couple changes, but some big news yesterday. And listen, we don't talk a lot about long snappers, but it was, I'll be honest, I wasn't really paying attention to it. I thought Paul Friesen did a great job in the Sun of telling the story of Mike Benson's release from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And, that's a very, very tough thing to do. The contracts are guaranteed if you're a veteran. After yesterday, I guess, 48 hours before the 9th game of the season, that's where the Bombers are. And, they had a young guy, 12 years his junior, coming in, doing a good job while he was out. So Winnipeg native, and I believe former St. Paul's grad, Mike Benson, out. And that story just does show the kind of the human side of things. And I'll say this about Mike O'Shea. The one thing that you hear from every player that plays for Coach O'Shea is just how much he cares about his men. And it's not surprising, Connor. I mean, Mike O'Shea was that guy for more than a decade as a leader in the Canadian Football League. And I mean, it is part of the job. You have to make those tough decisions, but the personal way they dealt with it, I think all class, but at the same time, one of those very, very tough decisions to make to let a guy go like that. I mean, I don't think that's going to have a huge effect on the game or anything like that. We'll get to the roster in a minute, but did want to mention that right off the bat that, Mike Benson, who'd given a lot to this organization and team and being a part of the community for his entire life, unfortunate news that he is not part of the team moving forward.
Yeah, I do agree with you that, we don't often talk about long snappers or what's going on at that position. It's not a position battle in training camp that you're really keeping an eye on, but a local Winnipegger playing for the Blue Bombers, I'm sure that was a tough decision for Mike O'Shea. I'm sure it was a tough conversation to let him go. And we also got some other news yesterday as well, Huss, and the depth chart, we'll get into that in a second, but the depth chart is without Terrell Bonds, who announced last night on his personal Instagram account that he is done for the season. So that play where I believe it was Jones for Calgary scored the touchdown and Terrell Bonds was down on the field for a couple of minutes. A few of the reporters that were there at the game said it was, ugly. He was down for a number of minutes, clearly in some pain. And now this makes a little bit more sense as to why that injury looked so painful, and he's done for the season. And for a team that, their secondary is struggling. We've talked a lot about them so far this week, going into a game against Drew Brown and the Ottawa Redblacks with a good passing attack. They're going to be one corner shorter with Terrell Bonds done, not just for this week against Drew Brown and the Ottawa Redblacks, but for the rest of the season. Always hate to see that, no matter the player.
Yeah. So, well, let's get to this. Bonds out. And he kind of announced it himself last night on Instagram, saying he was heartbroken, but his season is over. And, it's really too bad because, now listen, things didn't look as good the last month or so that it did when it started out. But, Connor, I'm pretty sure I was the guy that couldn't stop talking about Bonds and how well he played against the BC Lions in those first couple of games. And the fact that, maybe they'd done it again. Come in with some big question marks at that position and found a young man that just simply slid in and played brilliantly. And obviously the shine came off on the secondary. Bonds and Bridges were your starters at the beginning of the season, and now they are both gone. And looking at the depth chart for tomorrow's game, you're going to have Lawson Jr. starting at one corner position and Treva Val on the other. Now, Peyton Logan was a full participant in practice, but he's not coming onto the roster. So you could say that Treva Val could be one of the most important and most impactful players in the game tomorrow. He has had the opportunity, and I would give him the boatload of credit for turning around that game against Toronto a couple of weeks ago and being the catalyst of that win that the Bombers desperately needed. Well, if he was looking for more opportunity, he's going to get it. He's going to be returning punts. He'll be returning kicks. And now he's got to handle one of the top receivers on the Ottawa sideline coming off their explosion in that massive comeback against the Argos last Saturday.
Yeah, and Treva Val, we talked about him as a kick returner, punt returning. He's kind of played spot duty with Jamal Parker going out of the lineup a few weeks ago, and now Terrell Bonds going out. You see him filling in at corner. Now, I believe this is the first game, maybe it's the second game, where he's going to start at corner and return kicks. So that was something that we talked about yesterday, Huss. Was Peyton Logan going to come in and maybe ease the workload from Treva Val, returning punts and kicks and playing corner? That's a lot of snaps. But here's a quote from the Bombers game preview. He said, "I've been doing that since high school, since 2016-17, playing defense and then staying out there and returning the ball." So if the Bombers get a stop on second down, you'll just see Treva Val walk backwards 40 yards and then return that punt. So that'll be really interesting to see how he handles that, the added workload, and also how he plays as his first full game at corner. We talked about the challenge that the Bombers are facing with Drew Brown coming off of a 370-yard, 5-touchdown passing performance in Toronto and that miraculous comeback. Banged up secondary, turning to Treva Val, who's going to need to have a big game as a kick returner, and now is going to need to have a big game as a corner as well. So I'm fascinated to see that. And another change in the secondary, it looks like Cam Allen, a player who a lot of reporters were raving about in the preseason, kind of the preseason star for the Bombers, looks to be getting into the lineup and looks to be the second string safety behind Reddick Cramdy, who, if you paid attention to the game last week, Cramdy wasn't really at safety the whole game. He moved around quite a bit. So I'll be interested to see how much they lean on Cam Allen, number 0, Huss. I don't know your thoughts on on players wearing the number 0. I'm personally a fan of it. So really looking forward to Cam Allen, what he can do in the secondary, maybe add some relief there for a struggling group.
It's funny you mentioned the number 0. I actually not a big fan of zeros or double zero, but 0.
Okay, double 0 is ridiculous. I'll say that.
Well, single 0 I think is worse, to be honest. I do remember, for those of you of my vintage, like the old WWE, every time I see a guy wearing number 0, I think of famous jobber from the fabulous Reno, Nevada, Barry O. And he would do his every time. So I basically think of old wrestling jobbers when I think of guys wearing number 0. That might not be the case this year, because fantasy stud Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions is now wearing number 0 So maybe he'll give a little bit of love to it. Tell you what, it's not a good idea to wear 0 in the NBA because it seems it guarantees you tear your Achilles, as Tatum did,
Right.
as Lillard did, and as Tyrese Halliburton did.
Good point.
Very strange. So it seemed like a bit of a cursed number. Hopefully it's not cursed for Allen. The one thing back to Allen, coming onto into the lineup and being that guy behind Cramdy. Listen, we saw Cramdy get moved around. He's a versatile player, so they do use him in a few different spots. The problem was, as they got diminished in personnel and had to move around, it was Jake Kelly that got in. And listen, I didn't know a lot about Jake Kelly prior to the game. He got absolutely torched, and it was either getting burned or taking penalties. I think they realized they had to have another option. So here comes Cam Allen, who is an import, who might get a little bit more time there if Cramdy is moved around. They're certainly going to need a lot from Dietrich Nichols. Evan Holmes going to need to have a big game, and they are going to need to support Faval and Lawson Jr. out on those corner spots, because as we've seen in all the highlights, or if you watched the game last week, this Ottawa offense, like the team overall, certainly they've got some flaws, but this offense is no joke, and Drew Brown is going to come back to a place that he knows well, against a team he knows well, and tries to be working out. We'll get into this coming up with Dunk in a few minutes. As far as the offense goes, pretty much status quo, Connor. I mean, the line is going to be Bryant, Wallace, Kolinkowski, Neufeld, and Randolph. Your wideouts are Wheatfall and Claircius. The slots will be Dembski, Stearns, and Mitchell. And, of course, Brady Oliveira and Zach Caleros in the background. And I know we were just getting into it with Dusty. I know that the Ottawa Redblacks have the third-ranked rush defense. I don't care. I think this is going to be a big, big game for Brady Oliveira. If the Bombers are going to win this game, Brady Oliveira is going to need to rush the ball more than 12 times. Listen, I would like to see his receiving go down, because that would mean that they're actually able to complete passes to the receivers, the 5 of them that are a part of that. It can't be all him. But, man, I mean, going into it, I think the Bombers have to establish the run game early on. There's going to be a lot of Brady, and to me, it will be he leading the offense and hopefully can do enough to have the Ottawa defense on their heels and allow Zach Caleros a little bit more opportunity to start getting some more of these receivers in the game, because I know Stearns had that touchdown, but when your leading receiver outside of your running back has 32 yards in a football game, it's very rare that you could ever even think of winning in the CFL.
Yeah, and I said it on yesterday's show when we were at Breezy Bend, which was an absolute blast. I'll say I forgot to mention that off the top. That was a really fun day yesterday. The Bombers and the CFL is built for offense, and when you have a struggling secondary, I'd argue the challenge on the defensive side of the ball is more put on the defensive line. Willie Jefferson has to have a big game. James Vaughters has to have a big game as well to kind of cover for that secondary. But the Bombers' offense can do a lot to cover for their defense as well. If Brady Oliveira is picking up 7 or 8 yards on first down, they're controlling the clock. Zach Caleros can, use the play action in these short passing game to keep the chains moving, stay ahead of the chains, and keep their defense on the sideline. The Bombers can absolutely win this game, and I think that's why you see them favored by 5, 5.5, 6 points over at Coolbet. I think this is a bounce back game for the offense. And Jeff Hamilton this morning on CFL 110 picked the Bombers against the spread and said he doesn't feel very confident in it. That's the same way I feel about, banking on a bounce back game from this offense. But I truly think that the offense is going to turn a corner here at some point. I think Ottawa is a team that they can do it against. And I agree with you, Huss. Give Brady Oliveira the ball on the running game more than 12 times. I want to see him over 15 carries. I want to see less catches for him. I want to see more play action, short passes, stay ahead of the chains, control the clock, and keep the defense and this struggling secondary on the sidelines where they can't hurt you, and Drew Brown can't hurt you on the field as well. That's I think the blueprint for the Bombers tomorrow night.
Yeah, listen, I've got a lot of time for Brady being involved in the passing game and getting a lot of looks, but it can't be at the expense of anything on the wide receivers. And I think that if they establish the run, that has a better chance of happening. But the more Brady, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Get the
Agreed.
Football in the hands of your best player. as much as possible and give yourself a chance to win. And we'll talk more about those spreads later on the Cool Bet lines. But again, we've got pretty in-depth conversation on that with Hammer, which is up right now at CFL 110. We're going to get back to the Bombers and the league with Justin Dunk in a couple minutes. Listen, this is August. It's a very, very quiet time for hockey news. So anything that comes across our eyes that involves the Winnipeg Jets will perk people up. No doubt this topic did yesterday. This was from our pal Frank Saravelli, working with Bleacher Report, who in his musings brought up the future of Kyle Connor and the Winnipeg Jets. We'll play this clip for you, and then we'll give some quick thoughts on it. This is Frank from yesterday.
Again, not any reason to panic, but a lot of people have been wondering if Kyle Connor does decide to go to market next summer, would the Detroit Red Wings be a fit for Kyle Connor? You could see the Michigan product going back. I could certainly see that, and he would seem to make a ton of sense for a Detroit Red Wings team that could use additional scoring punch. But don't count out the Jets. They've had a good thing going. Obviously a tough playoff exit, but then leaving a lot to be desired. But Connor's got to be part of that solution, and maybe just me, but I still cannot believe he was a healthy scratch for the championship game in the Four Nations face-off.
All right, well, he finished it off strong. That was true. An egregious oversight by Team USA. But Connor, and we talked about this off air, I mean, it really did seem like a big-time nothing burger. I know some people would maybe be talking about it. Anytime you mention Kyle Connor and his future, oh, wait a sec, what's going on? He's so important to the Winnipeg Jets. You know, and listen, it has been a little quiet. We'll talk about that later on. But, I mean, as far as Detroit, I mean, all this is like, we've done this a million times. A guy is 1 year away from free agency. Might he like to go back to his hometown of Winnipeg? Like, there's nothing really in that. And again, I love Frank. This is not a shot at him. Sometimes when you're doing hockey shows in the middle of August, you got to hit everything. And listen, if it ever did come to it that he was a free agent, absolutely, I think the Detroit Red Wings and a bunch of other teams would be all in. Hell, spending the money on Kyle Connor would be a hell of a lot better than the way that the Detroit Red Wings has spent most of their free agent money over the course of the Yzer plan. But as I said, I mean, for you, no big alarm bells on that one. I mean, we know how the way things are going to go. And I do think it's pretty clear. Listen, Jets haven't said anything. This hasn't been reported, but let's face it. They cannot afford another Ehlers situation. We know why they did it last year, but right now, I think there will be some clarity through training camp early in the season about Kyle Connor. And if it's not working or it's breaking down, I think far earlier than the trade deadline, you start getting some thoughts on exactly what the Winnipeg Jets might do if they're not. But there's been no indications that that is the case.
Yeah, I've brought this up on this show a few times now, the comparison between Kyle Connor and the Hellebuyck-Scheifele situation. I feel like August was jam-packed with drama when it came to those two, and Connor Hellebuyck jersey mock-ups. I saw so many photos of Connor Hellebuyck in a New Jersey Devils jersey, and then they signed long-term. And this year, it just feels like there's this confidence that Kyle Connor's contract will get done with the Winnipeg Jets, but as we move through August, as we get closer and closer to training camp, that concern begins to grow, because I agree with you, Huss. You can't have another Nikolai Ehlers situation where Kyle Connor, who's way too valuable to be a self-rental, ends up being a self-rental. You can't let a guy like that walk. If he doesn't want to re-sign long-term, then the Winnipeg Jets might have to face the tough reality of trading a player as talented as Kyle Connor. But let me put it to you, Huss. At what point do you start to feel the alarm bells go off with a Kyle Connor lack of an extension? Is it the beginning of training camp? Is it the start of the regular season?
It's November.
Okay.
Put it this way. If he is unsigned when we get to November 1, it won't be DEFCON 5, but it will be, there'll be some people that'll be freaking out, and it'll be a daily conversation on the topic, and the insiders will be at it. So, but again, to me, we've got some road left to get to on that. And as I said, maybe we'll do a little why not question of the day on that a little later on. But we've got Justin Dunk coming up. So just before we bring in Dunk, Folks, if you got a move coming up this summer, fall, or into the new year, make sure you holler at our friends at Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family owned and operated for over 60 years. Rollies.com is where you'll find everything about their services now into their 7th decade. Click on Request an Estimate. Use the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. Let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to move, and the Rollies staff will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they have been famous for over 60 years. For all your moving needs, make it Rollies. Find out more, request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. And hey, if it's been a minute since you've been to see the dentist, why don't you pop by the beautiful new facility of St. Vital Dental Center and see our pal Dr. Terry and his great staff. They've been taking care of generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans in St. Vital for years. And now, as I mentioned, a new spot, 167 St. Anne's, beautiful state-of-the-art facility with convenient free parking right in the back of the building to make it even easier to pop in and out and make the most of your day. Go to stviteldental.ca, taking clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full array of dental services from cleanings and checkups to dental implants. You can find out more and make an appointment today over at stviteldental.ca. Another big game tomorrow night at the Bomber at Princess Auto Stadium. And I know there'll be a ton of Canadian club and ginger ales being enjoyed because, of course, CC is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And speaking of the Bombers, right now, while supplies last at your local Manitoba liquor marts, you can pick up the special Bomber branded Canadian Club bottle, which is available until they are gone. And make sure to check out the club pack of the Canadian Club ready-to-drink coolers at Manitoba liquor marts as well while you're there. And just before we bring in Dunk, the Bombers need a big boost tomorrow. If you're looking for a boost or batteries for all the fun things that are taking over summer, boats, campers, ATVs, you name it, Manitoba Battery is the spot to do it. 2 locations in Winnipeg, Logan Avenue and their new location in the south end on Dovercourt Drive, with the best prices in batteries, period. Beating the pants off the big box stores. Save up to $60 a battery right now this summer by shopping local with Manitoba Battery. And if you're busy, don't worry about it. Order online or give them a call, and they'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. For all your battery needs, make it Manitoba Battery. Find out more or order online at manitobabattery.com. All right, we're back at it tomorrow with the Canadian Football League weekly opener Thursday night right here, sold out Princess Auto Stadium. Again, Jeff Hamilton and I went over all the big stories in the league today on CFL 110. And for more on the CFL right now, we bring in the brains of the operation at 3 Down Nation, our man, Justin Dunk. Dunk, what's good, man? How are you?
Doing well, man. Thanks for the intro. I don't know if I'm the brains. John Hodge is pretty smart. JC Abbott is too. So I'm just trying to keep up with them.
You're the pretty face. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. You got to ask those guys.
Hey, listen, right just before we get into tomorrow, I have not stopped talking about last weekend in the Canadian Football League, just in my passings around the city or bumping into people. And I didn't go through every single week in CFL history, but I mean, we've been watching this league for a long time. Can you remember 4 consecutive games that were that wild as what we saw last week? It was truly what the CFL is all about and couldn't have been much better.
I can't remember a better week or a closer week, I should say, Hustler, but we should know that I've had multiple concussions during my football playing career, so that might play a role in it. That said, it was highly entertaining. There wasn't a game that the CFL haters could cherry pick out there last week and say, now this is why the league is subpar, or some of the other terms that they like to throw around. It was elite entertainment on the edge of your seat, right down to the wire. My personal favorite was Cody Fajardo on the road in Montreal after the Alouettes had shipped him to Alberta in the off season, putting that drive together for Edmonton to get a win there.
It was incredible. And, we talked a lot about the revenge game narrative of the two quarterbacks that were traded for each other going against their own teams. Don't forget about the receivers. You had Hollins on one side and Julian Grant. And for Julian Grant to be the hero after being the GOAT the week before, I mean, that's why we love sports. You always have another chance to redeem yourself.
Definitely. And it was just so apropos for Cody Fajardo, for example, to throw a game-winning touchdown to yet another Canadian receiver. We've seen him do it with Montreal in the Grey Cup, and then he does it in Montreal with Keon Julian Grant, who was a former Alouette himself. You got to love some of those storylines that seem like they're scripted, but just play out naturally in sports.
Just while we're on Montreal for a minute, that comeback, in my opinion, doesn't happen if MBT doesn't throw up that meatball at the end of the first half to Tyrell Ford. What's the quarterback situation in Montreal? See, he's now on the 6th game. They picked up Chad Dukes. We're going to get Caleb Evans. And I guess the return of Davis Alexander can't come soon enough for a team that looked to be in very good shape, but has not done very well without their starter.
Definitely not. The Alouettes need Davis Alexander back, but Jason Moss has been on record multiple times saying that he's not going to rush him back. He'd rather have Alexander return to the lineup and be there for good for the stretch run. So you noted it there. MBT goes on the 6-game injured list. Cam Dukes comes in, who honestly I was surprised about him not being on a roster after he was released by the Toronto Argonauts following training camp this season. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Dukes to go in there, considering Caleb Evans appears to be the starter there for the foreseeable future. And Dukes is somewhat of a similar style to Evans and even Davis Alexander. All three of those guys are quarterbacks that can use their feet to at least pick up a first down, if not more, in Evans and even Alexander's case. So I think the fit makes sense there if the offense is going to be a little more tailored for a dual threat quarterback. And McLeod Bethel-Thompson, for as much as he didn't want TSN criticizing his play, I don't think there's much that he can say back to that at this point after throwing, you said it, that meatball out there, Tyrell Ford licking his chops, an easy one to take it back for a game-changing score. You could argue if that play doesn't happen, perhaps Montreal is able to find a way to win the football game. And from Jason Moss's standpoint, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, Caleb Evans, or whoever's playing quarterback just simply can't lose you the game, because Montreal's defense under Noel Thorpe, especially with Sean Lemon back up front getting after the passer, is a group that can keep you in football games with decent quarterback play if you can even just come out even in terms of the turnover margin.
I'll absolutely make that argument that they win that game if he doesn't throw that pass. And just on the, as far as MBT goes with throwing out that kind of gauntlet to the Friday Night Football crew in the TSN panel, dude, if you want to stay on the positive side, or you want to challenge them to not say anything good, I would recommend saving a play like that for another time than 30 seconds before they go to the halftime panel on the biggest broadcast of the week.
That was awesome, man. Like, you love the guy wearing his heart on his sleeve, showing you his real emotions, even though Hustler, all these guys say that they don't watch or listen or read any of the coverage, which is just proven yet again that's complete BS. I can't understand it, because as a professional athlete, you talk about, or they like to talk about, just being solely focused on what they're doing. In this instance, that's playing football. Like, why are you out here caring about what the TSN panel or anybody else has to say about your play when Jason Moss is probably going to be way harder on you in those film sessions? Like, that kind of stuff, we love it from a media perspective, but from an athlete perspective, I just have a hard time understanding it.
Dunk, I'm so happy you're on the program, because, I'm pretty close to it here, as well as most people watching the show. Before we talk about Winnipeg, Ottawa tomorrow night, what were your takeaways of the Bombers' 1-point loss to Calgary on Saturday after they were spotted that 17-point lead early on?
You just got to finish the football game. And we've seen the Bombers be able to do that in the past. And I think that's what's really stuck out to me, Hustler, about this Bombers team to start the season. 4-4, like the season's not over. I think people can calm down a little bit. Let's remember they were 2-6 last year after 8 games. And I think a lot of people thought, okay, the dynasty's over. The Blue Bombers are going to fall off a cliff. I don't necessarily think that's the case with this year's Bombers either. But my question to you in Bomber Nation would be, where's bully ball been, especially in the fourth quarter? Like, I remember being on with you last year, the year before, and probably years past, but specifically the last 2 seasons, talking about Brady Oliveira being like the Mariano Rivera of the CFL, closing out football games, leaning on that offensive line, bringing that physicality. That's the type of a game that we're used to seeing from Winnipeg, especially going up 17-zip. Like, that game to me, in the past for this Bombers team, especially after a slow start or down the stretch, would be one that they close out, I don't want to say with relative ease, but where they get the job done. And there were some people telling me around the league that they felt like that game, from Winnipeg's perspective, was going to be a game where the Bombers show that, hey, we're still among the contenders in the league, potentially even the class of the West Division. But I think Vernon Adams Jr. punching back, and also what Saskatchewan has done, shows that the Bombers have some catching up to do in 2025.
Not only that, but I mean, some major improvements at some certain personnel issues. Like, I'm with you. And I thought that the way, and listen, the defense had some major holes. The secondary is decimated right now, and that poses a problem for a red-hot Ottawa offense that's coming back tomorrow. But Doug, you're exactly right. Like, in a 1-2 point game, in the final 3 minutes, more often than not for the last 5-6 years, when the Bombers get the football, the other team ain't getting it back. If they have the lead, they'll get the first downs that they need to, and they'll be in victory formation at the end, and then they're shaking hands. Or in the case of last week, more often than not, they're moving the football, the clock goes down, and Sergio Castillo goes out with the opportunity to win the game. What normally doesn't happen is 3rd and 11 and Mike O'Shea calling on Sergio to go out and kick a record-tying 63-yard field goal, which was unbelievable. I mean, a total highlight. But any Bomber fan that was watching that game saw the amount of time left on the clock and what Vernon Adams had been doing, especially in the second half, and knew that this one was far from over. And that, I think, was concerning. And listen, there's been so much talk about the secondary, and it's legitimate. I mean, the 2 guys that they started off the season with were both somewhat question marks. They're both gone. You got backups going in against this Ottawa offense. But when you think about the second half of that game, I mean, the reason why it ended the way that it did was that the Bomber offense, both the offensive line wasn't very effective, and there was absolutely no passing attack when it came to the wide receivers. Brady Oliveira was great. I mean, they had to keep checking it down. The Bombers' leading receiver had 32 yards. You can't win in the Canadian Football League doing that, which brings us to this week. And I mean, Phil, what are your feelings on Ottawa coming in here right now? I mean, one of the more incredible, the fact that the Bombers blew a 17-point lead, and it wasn't even the biggest comeback of Saturday in the CFL, speaks to what last week was like. But I mean, Ottawa getting themselves off the mat, back-to-back wins, and the one they did last week in spectacular fashion with a red-hot Drew Brown bringing that show to Winnipeg tomorrow night.
Ottawa has to feel like they have a second life in 2025, because when they were down 22-1 in Toronto at BMO Field on the road, arguably season on the line. Some people want to say that, yeah, the season doesn't start until Labor Day. But, dude, your season can be over by Labor Day, okay? Just ask the Edmonton Elks the last couple of years, and potentially even this year. That win in Toronto, the comeback you referenced, was huge for the Redblacks. I think there's all kinds of confidence that can come from that. That said, they're going into the toughest barn in the Canadian Football League to get a win against a Bombers team that is absolutely going to be full of piss and vinegar, and wanting to show not even everybody out there, but I think themselves, that they can get a key win here and start some momentum as we get towards Labor Day and beyond, and legitimately be in the talk as a contender for the Grey Cup this year. Like, I think the Bombers have the makings of being a playoff team. I don't think we have to have that discussion quite yet unless they fall a little bit further behind, because it seems like there's going to be a West Division crossover, at least at the moment. But this game is massive when you talk about that, because it seems like Saskatchewan and Calgary are the class of the West, though the Bombers still have 3 games, I believe it is, against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, the Labor Day, home and home, whatever you want to call it, and then another one a little later. So if you're looking at the schedule and the potential for a crossover, you go out and beat Ottawa, and it's kind of hard for them to mathematically stay alive unless the Redblacks go almost undefeated for the rest of the season.
Yeah, listen, when we looked at the schedule, I didn't think that a mid-August game against Ottawa would be a huge game with high leverage when it comes to the playoffs, but you're exactly right. Like, listen, I mean, I'll get your thoughts on BC in a minute, but I mean, I'm feeling that this team is on the verge. I think they'll be much better in the second half than they were in the first half, and they've already played Sask twice and Winnipeg twice. But I mean, like, if the Bombers lose this game, Ottawa is at the same 4 wins as the Bombers are right now. And of course, to get that East crossover, you have to have a better record. I mean, head-to-head doesn't matter. Point differential, you have to be better in the standings than that other team. So it's a really, really important game. And to me, Justin, like we were talking just now with Dusty on the Lock Shop about this spread that's at 5 or 5.5. Like, if you're a Bomber fan, you're just hoping that they can get one more point than the other team. Because here's the thing, with the secondary the way that it is right now, I think Ottawa's going to get there. It's like, I don't think this is going to be a low-scoring game, which means that Zach Collaros in this offense need to be significantly better than they've been lately. Like, I don't think that the Bombers are going to get a win like they did against Toronto a couple weeks ago, where the offense puts forth one offensive touchdown and you can get a win. Like, if they're going to beat Ottawa, they're going to need to get into the end zone with the offense more than once.
I would definitely agree. And, a lot of people are focusing on the banged up secondary, rightfully so. But, this front needs to do a better job, especially getting after the passer. Like, Willie Jefferson has flashed. James Vaughters, I think, is not what people thought he could be yet, at least at this point in Winnipeg. Like, that front 4, I think, needs to be much better. And your point about Ottawa coming in with the passing attack and Drew Brown, Gino Lewis, Justin Hardy, Khalil Pimpleton, Braylon Addison looked really good in that win over Toronto with over 100 yards, is a legitimate one. Now, they've had some ups and downs this season, but that was mainly when Drew Brown was out of the lineup. Like, I watched the Redblacks live in week 1 going to Saskatchewan, and Drew Brown throw for over 400 yards in that game against, arguably one of the best secondaries in the league. So the fact that you look at the Bombers secondary being beat up with some young pieces in there now, Trey Valville potentially, we'll see if the roster actually translates to what it is on paper on the field, if he does have to play defensive back and be the key returner for them too. But the Redblacks are a matchup problem on offense. Where I think the Bombers can get right is that passing game, because the Redblacks have had their issues in the secondary, a little bit banged up, but more so, giving up some big plays on the back end. So I think Zach Collaros and the offense have a chance to make some big plays. We're going to see Dylan Mitchell in the lineup for the first time. That decision in and of itself, to not even have him involved in the offense at all from a game action perspective, is a head scratcher, considering what they paid to bring him in there in the offseason. He's a guy, for me, you go back to his first year in the league with Edmonton, who flashed. He looked really good, especially playing that X position where, at least on the depth chart, and you can never really trust Mike O'Shea, that's where he could potentially line up, is at X or that boundary slot back spot. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. Mitchell being added into that receiving core, I think, could give them some juice, but I would love to hear the story behind the scenes, why he hasn't been on the roster yet, though I doubt Mike O'Shea is going to tell us.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, that was a saga. And Mitchell did get in last week, finally on the roster for the first time. And like the rest of the Bomber offense was, had a minimal. I think he was one of the 4 receivers that had 3 catches. Yeah, he had 22 yards in that game. But maybe one game in, a little bit more of an opportunity to get into the mix, because he wasn't even practicing with the ones for the first 2 months, Justin. So, yeah, and listen, they said, they didn't think that he could play the slot, and then sure enough, he goes in the slot. So I don't believe they're being fully transparent about that, and that is what it is. Hey, moving off of this Winnipeg Ottawa game, Saturday afternoon in Regina, we have one hell of a matchup. The top team in the East versus the top team in the West. The Roughriders coming off the bye with an opportunity to really plant their flag as the team to beat in the Canadian Football League, not just the Western Division. How do you shape this one up after the Ticats had that heartbreaking overtime loss last week in a game that it's funny, that Thursday game, I think I was on the show saying, listen, guys, that might be the game of the year in the Canadian Football League. And then by the time we got to the end of the weekend, it might not have even been the game of the week. But this one certainly does look like it will be the game of the week.
At least on paper, yeah. It's got real potential. You have Bo Levi Mitchell going up against Trevor Harris. That quarterback matchup is as elite as it gets right now in the Canadian Football League. All due respect to Nathan Rourke and Vernon Adams Jr., and we talked about Drew Brown as well. But I think these two veteran quarterbacks are the two leaders in their respective divisions. If the MOP voting was going to happen today in the West and the East, I think it would be Bo Levi Mitchell in a landslide in the East. I think there'd be some discussion about Vernon Adams Jr. in the West, but it's probably Trevor Harris at this point coming out of there. He's missed one game, so his overall total statistics aren't quite there with Bo Levi Mitchell, but he's still averaging over 300 yards a game. I think it's like 10 or 11 straight games now, completing 70% or more of his passes. Like, just unbelievable pass efficiency from Trevor Harris. And the most intriguing part about this matchup to me will be, how do the Riders treat Kenny Lawler? Because we've seen teams do it differently, right? We've seen him be singled up, and then he's going to go for like 200 yards on you and multiple touchdowns. Or even when those opportunities come throughout the game, Bo Levi Mitchell seems to find him quickly. But even when he's double covered, we saw it on that Thursday night game in Hamilton against BC. Bo Levi Mitchell's still spotting the football out there perfectly to him, and Kenny Lawler's making a catch. Now, I know they went quick, and some people didn't think he caught it, but he's still doing spectacular things even in double coverage or when he's bracketed. So if you're Saskatchewan, there has to be a balance there. Lawler is a real key watching this offense from afar to me in terms of the side that Bo Levi Mitchell usually reads first. I think a lot of that has to do with the numbers in the secondary, but I think you have arguably the best defensive backfield in the Canadian Football League in the Riders, matching up against not only just Kenny Lawler, Tim White, Keandre Smith has had big games for the Ticats. Shamar Bridges was a sensation last year, but with all the targets to Lawler and White and Keandre Smith, hasn't seen the football quite as much, but he flashed even last week in BC. He can make some great plays on the field. Then with Saskatchewan, you got Tavon Campbell. The Canadian defensive back was in the NFL for a number of years, coming back, playing at a high level. He's made impact plays. You got Marcus Sales shifting from field corner to the boundary corner spot. The Riders actually don't flip sides like some teams do with their defensive backs and their defensive secondary. They play sides, so that'll be interesting to see. Do they shake that up to go against Kenny Lawler? And you got a very intriguing matchup here. I haven't even talked about Roland Milligan Jr., who's one of the best, if not the best, defensive back in the league, going to Marcus Fields on the strong side, and then Nelson Lacombo at safety. It's a really good group going against a really good Ticats receiving corps.
This game is going to be awesome. 2 p.m. Winnipeg time, Saturday afternoon. Ticats at Riders. Coolbet's got the Riders as 3.5-point favorites, which, to be honest, Doug, surprises me. I mean, if you take out the 3 points that usually juice the home team, like, to me on a neutral field, I think the Riders should still be 2 or 3 point favorites against the Ticats.
I think sort of public sentiment would be changing that a little bit because everybody's watching the numbers that Bo Levi Mitchell is putting up. And the Riders, yeah, they're 7-1, but there's been some close wins in there. Like, Ottawa almost came back in week 1. In Toronto, it took that Mariel Alford kick return touchdown for the Riders to avoid a comeback by the Argos in a near win, let's call it. So there's been a lot of talk around Riderville about closing teams out. They did that in Montreal. That was against MBT, a whole different monster coming in here with Bo Levi Mitchell. So I think that line to me shows that the Ticats are getting some respect and some love from the public.
Hey, before we go, are you buying or selling the BC Lions in the second half of the season? I got to say, I mean, I don't know. We've seen Nathan Rourke do some special things, but that performance he put on last Thursday made me think that that 3-5 start was maybe a bit of an aberration. I think they are going to be very live going forward.
If Nathan Rourke is healthy, totally agree. The Lions are live, could be a Grey Cup contender under the radar perhaps, but I think they're definitely legitimately a playoff team if Rourke is healthy. And I think for my money, Rourke is the MVP of the CFL. I know we don't have that award, but I think he is most valuable to his team because BC can compete with anybody when he's on the field. Like, look at them going into Hamilton and Bo Levi Mitchell and the run that he was on, upstaging him at home. But when Jeremiah Masoli has started games or any other quarterback on that roster has played, Chase Bryce included, team looks like one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the CFL. So I think Rourke is the MVP. There's some other candidates out there. You know, some people said, well, what about Bo Levi Mitchell? Or what about Vernon Adams Jr. if we're going to talk about this hypothetical MVP award? And I get it. Some people could even throw Davis Alexander into the mix there. But I think truly for the Lions, Nathan Rourke makes that big of a difference. So I'll agree. If he's healthy, the Lions are very intriguing down the stretch.
You know, I'm just looking at Coolbet, the MOP odds. Bo is the favorite at plus 135. Vernon Adams plus 225. Trevor Harris plus 350. And then a pretty big gap. And Nathan Rourke at 11-1. I'll say this. I think if BC, like, the value is there for Nathan Rourke. Like, there is absolutely a path to him having a strong second half and him being right there in the mix. And being a Canadian guy, I think he might get an extra vote or two there as well. Hey, what's cooking at 3 down as we get closer to the weekend?
You know, man, obviously we're covering all the CFL stuff that's going on, but I think people should be reminded out there that the youth sports season is about to start here, specifically in Ontario. It's not this weekend, but the weekend after. And we've got some intriguing quarterbacks around the country. Arguably the most intriguing to me is Callum Wither, who's an Ohio University transfer. That's where Nathan Rourke went, and his brother, Curtis Rourke, by the way, who's come back to Ontario, is in his hometown, going to Wilfrid Laurier University, going to take over there for Taylor Elgersma. Now, I don't think it's fair to expect this guy to be an NFL caliber talent right off the bat, or perhaps ever in his career, but he's an intriguing kid. That Laurier program, who went to the Vanier Cup last year and lost to Laval, returns a bunch of starters, especially on defense and even on offense. So I think they're going to be among the top teams in Canadian university football. You know, back in your backyard there, Hustler, the Manitoba Bisons, sounds like Jackson Tuchinski is going to be back there for that team, should be competing in the Canada West. So we'll have some unique interviews coming out with regard to Canadian university football.
Hey, good stuff. Hey, I know you're going to be here for Grey Cup. Are you going to be in Regina for Labor Day?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I will see you there. We'll touch base beforehand, and we'll be we'll see what happens in the game. I think confidence levels are not quite as high as they've been in the last few years on the Bombers side with what we've seen from Sask, but I'm quite confident that saying it will be the most fun weekend of the year, maybe outside of Grey Cup. So we'll see you there. Thanks for doing this, Justin.
You bet, buddy. We should talk to Coolbet and Andrew and get something going for the Labor Day Classic.
Yeah, well, listen, I'll talk to you off air about what we're cooking up for the cooking up for Grey Cup. We'll be in touch about that. It'll be fun. There's a little tease for the people out there. Have a good one, Dunk. Thanks for doing this.
You too, buddy.
All right, Mike McIntyre coming up in just a minute. Of course, tomorrow night, Bombers, Redblacks, 7:30 p.m. Princess Auto Stadium. Bombers got to have it, and Ottawa, I'm sure, comes in feeling the exact same way. Should be a great one. Tickets, very hard to find around Winnipeg right now. But again, we do have a pair to give away. Shout out to Schnitzy and Connor, the WST Bomber Report team. I want to give that pair actually to a dad. We've got a couple of great seats right behind the Bomber bench. So if you're interested in taking a little one for what should be an amazing experience at Princess Auto Stadium, fire me a DM on Twitter or Instagram at Hustlerama, and we'll try to do our best to hook you up. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers, and us right here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. Princess Auto is where you find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Three Manitoba locations: Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and Brandon. You can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. So great to get some messages from my friends out at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge that they are back. Customers and guests back on the water, pulling big fish out of the lake and enjoying amazing times at Aikens Lake after the horror of the fires over the course of the last month. If you're interested in making the most of the rest of summer into September, middle of September or so, there's still time to get on the water. Go to aikenslake.com. Let Pitt know you heard us talking about it on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Hook you up with a 10% discount for any availability for the rest of the season out at Aikens Lake, or start planning for that world-class fishing experience next year over at Aikens. And just before we bring in Mike, fellas, fall is just around the corner. If you need to up your menswear game, get on down to F Apparel, the leaders in custom men's clothing in Winnipeg. Custom suits starting at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and of course the best in menswear accessories as well. They're at 190 Smith Street downtown. And hey, if you are in a wedding party or getting married, make sure to talk to the guys at F about a special discount when you get your suits for the big day at F Apparel. Again, 190 Smith Street, and check them out online and make an appointment to come in for a fitting at F, that's EPH Apparel.com. All right, let's bring in Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. We saw Mike yesterday at Breezy getting ready for the Open, and then Mike went out and took on the course, which has been toughened up in advance of the pros. How was the round? How did you make it around 18 at the Bend?
First of all, shout out to Marcel and Derek, who were my playing partners yesterday. Those guys were an absolute hoot. I haven't laughed that much playing golf in a long time. Those guys are a reality show in and of themselves. So had a great company. And my goodness, did I ever get a tour of the course yesterday, Huss, because I was kind of all over the place. That rough at Breezy, which, to be honest, that's the main defense that the course is going to have for these PGA Tour America pros. Those guys, of course, their eyes are going to light up at the lengths of some of the holes and the possibilities of what that brings. But the rough is the great equalizer. So I know Corey and the gang yesterday said it was around 4 inches, and they're going to grow it another inch by next week. All this rain has helped. I spent a lot of time in the rough. I can tell you, I woke up this morning, everything hurt. My arms hurt, my back hurt. And the main reason is from trying to hit out of that rough. Like it lives up to his name. It is rough. There were a couple times yesterday where we nearly lost our balls. Like we knew where the ball went. We saw it off the tee, and like we were right on top of it, but it's hard to see because the rough is so thick that it was, kind of hiding in plain sight. But I know you saw it, Huss. The course is in absolute immaculate condition. Like it is a palace out there. Absolutely lush. It's going to look great for Breezy, for Manitoba. I think the pros are going to love it. They're not going to love it if they get into the rough a little too much, but these guys hit it a lot straighter than I do. So yeah, it was a great day, and I'm really excited to get going next week on the tournament and cover it. This is like deja vu for me. I actually caddied in the Manitoba Open at Breezy as like a teenager. So it's like a full circle moment for me, 35-ish years later to now be covering it for the paper.
You know what? It's that is great, and we'll look forward to. We're going to be out there from Tuesday through to Friday, and we'll get you to jump on, and even just grab you at some point when you're rolling around towards the media center. Mike, what's going on? Fill us in. I'm playing it on Sunday afternoon, right before, like almost the last minute before it goes into tournament mode.
Should be
And I'm
another half
hoping-
inch or so by then. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm just hoping that it doesn't matter because I get burned all the time by my buddies for basically playing a real life version of Mario Golf, which is just like 170 yards straight. And,
Yeah.
So I'll
That's-
do that all day, hopefully, and not have to deal with it as much. But it is going to be a fun week next week, and it was good to see you yesterday. Mike, we played that clip, and I'm sure you saw it, of Frank Saravelli talking about the Kyle Connor situation yesterday. I mean, huge nothing burger. That's August. There's nothing to talk about. Yeah, okay, he's a pending UFA at the end of next year. What do you think about going home? Yeah, for sure, if it gets to that point. But as Connor asked me earlier, at what point, if it is not done in training camp at the beginning of the season, does this begin to be a daily topic and a major issue for the Winnipeg Jets? I said, listen, I'm going to give them October, but I think if the calendar flips to November and we get into that point without any clarity on that, this is going to be a story. And I don't think they're going to be able to get away with, like they did with Ehlers last year, well, we're going to talk about it later on and focused on this year. Because, listen, I totally understand why they operated the way they did last year. I would have done the same thing. But Kyle Connor is so important and such an asset to the Winnipeg Jets that I don't think you can take the risk at all that asset walks for nothing if you're not able to get the extension done.
Oh, I agree. I mean, if a deal isn't done by what's the home opener, the home opener / season opener, what is it?
October 9th.
Yeah, I mean, if a deal's not done by midnight on October 8th, then I give everybody out there in Jets land full permission to start to worry and, maybe panic a little bit. Okay, I'll grant you the month of October, but I just think once the season starts, Huss, like, I guess negotiations could keep going at that point. To me, if both sides can't get this figured out by October 8th, then there is reason to start to worry. And, coupled with what happened with Ehlers being fresh in everybody's mind, including the organizations, of course, I wouldn't blame anybody for starting to get a little nauseous at the possibility. I continue to say and believe, I don't think it goes that far. I don't think it gets to that point. I do think that this is going to get worked out prior to October 8th. Now, how much prior to? Will it be October 7th? Will it be September 7th? Will it be August 14th? Tomorrow? Probably not. But, I think there's still some runway here. To me, like, this speculation about the Red Wings, like, that's not surprising in the sense that, of course, if he got to that state of being a UFA, of course the Red Wings would make sense. Need I remind everybody, though, I think some similar, if you want to call them rumors or rumblings or whatever, speculation, was happening with Connor Hellebuyck and the Red Wings. Like, and, to me, that really made sense. The Red Wings really needed goaltending, and Connor Hellebuyck would have checked off some major boxes for them. And we all know how that story played out. And I do believe that we're going to see a similar end to the Kyle Connor chatter, if you will, by way of a contract extension. But yeah, I mean, the Red Wings stuff, like, you're right. That's just mid-August, dog days of summer. Nothing's happening. Throw it out there. But I get why. Yeah,
I was just going to say, the funny thing about is talking about Detroit. Yeah, well, no kidding that they would want to get Kyle Connor. When you think about the money that they have thrown at free agents over the course of the Yzerman era, I can't think of very many that have turned out very well. I mean, it's overpay after overpay after overpay. And I mean, they haven't even played a playoff game. So listen, if he got to that point, teams like that would, of course, be going all over him. But let me just for a moment endeavor the possibility that the ask is too much right now, or it's unreasonable, or maybe Colin Camp is thinking like Ehlers, well, you know what? This is my one chance. I've earned it. I wouldn't mind seeing what free agency would see. And the Jets decide, okay, maybe we have to trade him. What do you think a package for Kyle Connor on an expiring contract would bring? I mean, I think the best case scenario would obviously be to work with the team like the PLD deal, where you get essentially a sign and trade or a agreement where there is an extension in place, where I think that improves. But I mean, listen, you lose Kyle Connor off the team. I mean, that is your number one offensive catalyst. I mean, it is a huge loss. Like, I still am having, like, you can get draft picks and stuff. Those are lottery tickets. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. Like, with where the Jets are and, you know, the veteran nature of this team now.
Right.
What would make sense for the Winnipeg Jets if they were forced into a trade for Connor that wouldn't be taking a massive step back?
Yeah, and that's your mention of the PLD trade is bang on, I think, because you'd almost be looking to replicate that package and getting players that are able to contribute immediately. You're not worried about the future unless you're completely detouring from what your plan is. And we know with this organization, Huss, like, as long as they have Hellebuyck and Scheifele and other core guys locked up, like, they're trying to win right now. They're not building for the future. They're building for the present. And so, you know, draft picks and prospects, that's great. That's not at all what they would be interested in. So what would teams have that could step in and, you know, fill the void? Because there would be a big void that would be left by the absence of a Kyle Connor. And, you know, it creates an interesting discussion point for sure. If you're the Jets, and let's just say, and again, there's nothing to suggest this has happened, and I'd personally be surprised if this happens, but if Kyle Connor's camp says, you know what, we're not ready to sign an extension, we want to see how the season plays out, we'll revisit this later, whenever that is, even maybe at the end of next season. You've just lost Nikolai Ehlers in very similar circumstances, but you're also built to win right now. Like, do you run the risk of using Kyle Connor as your own rental in the sense and not doing anything?
Hard no on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. But then how do you sell that in the room? How do you sell that to Mark Scheifele, to Connor Hellebuyck? And again, depending what that return would look like, I just think we see what NHL deals look like. There aren't a whole lot of Matthew Tkachuk for Jonathan Huberdeau type deals, right, Huss? Like, you know, and obviously that one maybe aged a little better for the Panthers. But let's remember, when that deal was made, that was superstar for superstar. Huberdeau was coming off like he was near the league leaders in scoring that year. We just don't see a lot of those deals made. So are you getting, and I think the other important thing here for the Jets is you would want as close to a comparable back as possible. You know, the PLD trade, they got 3 pieces, right? I do believe, and I think time is going to potentially show that the Jets got the best player back in that return in Gabe Vilardi, if it hasn't already shown that. But the risk you run when you turn, say, one player into 3, depth is great and all, but usually when you're doing a deal like that, you're hoping the sum of the parts adds up to, you know, the star that you traded. I don't know that the Jets are in the position where that's something they could do. You'd need a big star back, somebody who can fill the net the way Kyle Connor can. Are there a lot of players like that on the trade market? And I guess the bigger question is, if a team is trading for Kyle Connor because they want to add that to their roster, there's a good chance they don't have that on their active roster right now. That's why they're looking for it. And so, yeah, what do they have to offer that's of more value than really high draft picks or really good prospects, none of which I believe would be of any attraction to the Jets unless they're completely altering the course that they're on. So it is a very interesting discussion and debate. one that I suspect the organization and no doubt many fans hope does not become a realistic thing that we start talking about on the regular.
Hey, no doubt, chat's popping. Shout out to Nick Lyman. Nick, great to see you in chat, buddy. I know you got some takes on this one. Let me put this out. I'll look straight at you, Nick, for an answer, but as well as everyone else in chat. Why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? If the Jets were in a situation where they felt that they had to trade Kyle Connor, and this can be, let's just say it's in November. It doesn't get done. They realize, okay, they've got a little bit of time, but it's early enough in the season that they need to make this deal. You're 10, 15 games into the season, so you really don't, let's just say the team is like right there. It hasn't been a 1-14 start. They're not 14-1, just sort of right there where you expect them to be. Like, what's a return that would make you happy as a fan or a Jets supporter that would make the team better? And listen, I don't know that there's a scenario where you trade Kyle Connor and you get better this year. And listen, hopes are still high, like with the guys that they have in this room,
right,
and what they were able to do last year, that they don't fall off too far and they're able to take another run. But interested to know what people think, that if we got to that situation, like what it would take to make a good deal for the Winnipeg Jets in that. I mean, you're not really dealing from a position of strength at that point, Mike, in that final year of the deal, knowing that the player has all the control, and especially if the player feels that they would like to get to unrestricted free agency and see what is out there for them.
Absolutely, because if you could if you could trade the player to a team that he's willing to sign with, then obviously you could negotiate something a little bigger into that. Although again, it still creates the idea, depending on when that trade is happening. If it's later in the year, it's like, okay, why wouldn't that team just maybe wait and sign him in free agency if they know that's where the player wants to come, depending on what their situation is at this point. It's just like, we obviously saw Nathan McKinnon, not Nathan McKinnon. Trading Nathan McKinnon would be an absolute ridiculous.
Don't think he's available, Mike.
No, he's Mikko Rantanen obviously on the move twice last year, and the original trade that Carolina made, that was a big star for star. Although Marty Necas isn't on the same level, but and the hope was Carolina. No doubt, Carolina had hoped that would turn into a trade and sign. They did not sign. They then had to pivot as well in season, and it looks like they made out with a pretty nice return from the Dallas Stars that should help them. But again, those are rare. Like, you just don't see those kinds of deals go down very often, and I don't imagine the Jets want to be in a position that the Carolina Hurricanes were in last year, where they had to, almost think on the fly, right, and try to come up with something. And nor would a team, I imagine, who is trading for Kyle Connor want to be in the situation that the Hurricanes were in either, where you're giving up something very valuable, thinking that you can convince the player to sign, and then that doesn't pan out. So there's always buyer beware when you're talking trades. But this is a unique situation because Kyle Connor, and there will be people who will single out various faults that he has in his game. But one thing Kyle Connor does better than almost anyone in the National Hockey League is score goals. And I mean, you can debate all you want about various parts of the game. Scoring goals is still a very, very important part of hockey. Arguably the most important part. The team that scores the most wins. And, Kyle Connor can fill the net, and he's very much in his prime. He might just be, just barely touching his prime. There's nothing to indicate that a lot more big goal-scoring years are ahead of him. We know that's likely the case, so why wouldn't you want to take a run at him? But the Jets have him in the here and now, and they would like to keep it that way. And, yeah, I mean, I don't imagine, the money situation here would be a major hindrance to the Jets. I think they have the cap space, the ability to fit Kyle Connor in. it's just a question, I guess, of what the player wants. And certainly everything we know about Kyle Connor and we've seen and heard from over the years is that he loves being a Winnipeg Jet. He obviously loves the fit he has with Mark Scheifele, who's going to be a Winnipeg Jet for life. The Jets would like to add Kyle Connor to that list as well, I suspect.
Yeah, listen, he's got it pretty good. I mean, he's got that spot on the top line, on the top power play, that coming off a career year, certainly in a great spot. You bring up Rantanen, and the one thing that I'll say, I mean, listen, Carolina was aggressive in trying to get Rantanen, and then they were sitting there with a ticking time bomb on their hands,
Right.
and were not willing to just go into the season. Like, they weren't going to make him their rental, and I think they did a right thing. To be honest, when you look, getting Logan Stankoven, a really talented young player that they're able to, sign to a long-term deal and a couple of first-round picks. Like, when you look back at that, I mean, I'll argue that they actually made out quite well. Now, here's the thing. Would they have had a better chance to win the Stanley Cup last year with Mikko Rantanen on their team? Yeah, they probably would have. So, and Carolina's in one of those teams. Like, everyone's here. Like, listen, the Winnipeg Jets have been a really, really good team. They were the number one team in the league last year. Now, that guarantees nothing come playoff time. But are you looking to be a team that is just, you're getting in the playoffs every year and you're winning a round, maybe you make it to the conference finals like Carolina has been? Or are you looking to be a team that, is able to win the whole thing? And I'm not saying that Carolina can't. There's only one team that does. There's probably 8 teams every year that actually could win the cup. And again, 7 of them will have their fans going, these guys are bums, they can't get it done. But you know what I'm saying. But I will say this. When we talk about this, and what's interesting to me is that with the relative age of so many of the players on the team, there absolutely is an argument that while there might be a step back in the short term,
right,
that for the beyond the next 2-3 seasons, that a deal like that could actually stretch that window and take you into another era of Jets hockey, that the players that we've been leaning on are still important, valuable players of the team, but they aren't driving the bus the way they are, and they have to right now based on the roster.
Right, and that's where you're hoping that there is another wave coming, that the Elias Salamonson, Braden Yeagers, Brad Lamberts, Colby Barlows, like some of those guys pan out, and then they join the Dylan Sandbergs and Cole Perfettis on top of the other layer of, the Josh Morrissey and Mark Scheifele's. And that, ideally that's how teams avoid full-blown rebuilds, that you always have another wave coming. And you're right with the Jets. Like, you look at, I have not seen the numbers get crunched, Huss. I'm just going to say off the top of my head here that the Jets, with the projected roster that they have, now obviously if Brad Lambert's on it, that would skew the number. And if Elias Salamonson is on it, it would as well. But let's just assume for a second that Lambert and Salamonson are not on the opening night 23-man roster. And the Jets, I don't expect, are using LTIR. So, they'll have to be conscious of that in terms of incorporating Adam Lowry into the cap. But I'm just going to go out and say, like, are the Jets, they must be like top 10 this year in terms of oldest teams with, you look at the guys they went out and signed, between Jonathan Toews, Gustav Nyquist, Tanner Pearson.
Top 10? I think you're being conservative.
Maybe top 5. Yeah, like they're going to be one of the oldest teams in the league, no question. So I absolutely get what you're saying, and I think there is a group out there, Huss. I don't want to say they're the vocal minority. I don't want to put a number on how many feel this way, but there's certainly a group out there that probably feel that actually trading Kyle Connor might be, as you say, a good long-term move for the team, rather than tie themselves up to the kind of money that somebody's going to give him, whether it's the Jets or another team. Kyle Connor is absolutely going to get paid. And I don't imagine his next contract starts anywhere less than double digits, like 10 would be the floor, not the ceiling. So, that's a lot of money to obviously tie up in a player. I don't subscribe. I know there's some who paint Connor as a one-dimensional player. I think Connor has way more value to the team. He scores goals, absolutely, but we've seen Kyle Connor's game evolve. He now kills penalties and at times can do that very well. No, he's never going to win the Selke, but I think he has taken some strides on his defensive game, and it's a big reason why the Jets have been the best defensive team in the league. You don't do that 2 years in a row if all your best players, your offensive drivers, are selfish players who don't put any emphasis on defense. Kyle Connor's defensive game has improved. It's never going to be the strongest point of his game, of course, but so I think there's a more complete player there. I know some would disagree, but yeah, I have time for that debate that, hey, moving Kyle Connor could actually, although it might lead to some short-term pain, one step back, but maybe it ultimately leads to 2 steps forward. I mean, it's hard to predict how these things pan out. I mean, young players and prospects, there's obvious risks involved, especially when you're trading a proven valuable asset. But yeah, it's certainly a conversation worth having. Whether or not whether that conversation and that chatter gets louder here in the coming weeks, I guess we're about to find out.
Yeah, it's a very different story if you have a player like that and have another player signed to a contract that can just slide into that spot. Yeah. And listen, even if you think, maybe Cole Perfetti would be a nice fit up there, I mean, what's left after him right now if you're trading for sort of futures? Although, I mean, if even you look at just the Stankoven thing, I mean, yeah, Stankoven, Mikko Rantanen, but still a really good player, as well as what you might be able to garner or add to your team with the assets that are first-round picks. I mean, listen, a team like Winnipeg probably takes those picks and uses them and hopefully turns them into players that have long service to the club. But there's nothing to say that you couldn't make that trade beforehand and then sit there with 2 first-round picks and move those at the deadline and really stock up and change the way your team looks. Listen, it's August. This is not a conversation based on anything that we're hearing, but it is our duty to go through all of the possibilities and scenarios and get to all that. Mike, always great having you on the show. What's cooking in the free for you over the course of the next little bit?
Yeah, so I'm actually plugging away at. I've been lured back to the dark side just temporarily here, Huss. That would be the news side and some of my old crime reporting days. So I'm actually plugging away at kind of a news crime related feature while also dabbling a little bit in sports. And I'll have full coverage, daily coverage starting next week of the Manitoba Open, but kind of in the here and now, just being pulled away a little bit for some other work. Although I'll just throw this preview out. I have a fun feature that's coming up. I'm not sure exactly when it's running. I think it's either going to be this weekend or next weekend that I've already written and filed. It's about Jonathan Toews. It's about his medical journey. And yeah, it was an interesting story to research and write. And so that's coming up as well in the near future. But doing a little bit of crime stuff right now, not committing it, just covering it. And looking forward to a great week next week out at Breezy in the Open. And then after that, I'm off on a family vacation for a couple of weeks. And then before we know it, Huss, I'll get back from vacation and, oh, look, Jets training camp is about to start. So time is about to start really flying around here.
No doubt about that. Well, listen, thanks for doing this, dude. And I'll look forward to seeing a lot of you next week out at Breezy Bend for the Manitoba Open all week.
Looking forward to it, Huss. Take care.
Thanks, pal. Take it easy. There's Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. Very special guest coming up in just a minute. Some great stuff on this Connor topic. Not done with it yet. We'll get to fan feedback for fans first in a little bit after Morency jumps on with us. So if you want more of the Connor chat, we'll get to some of the best comments in the chat coming up in a minute. Just before we bring in Gabe, hey, we're going to talk some NFL. The NFL is just about back. Preseason is underway. all the new NFL gear for the season coming into Royal Sports, your number one sports superstore. Whether you're looking to get geared up for the big Bomber game tomorrow night and need some merch, obviously they've got some exclusives you won't find anywhere else. All your Jets gear for the upcoming season, or the best in NFL merch, Royal Sports is the spot. Pop by and see him, 750 Pembina Highway. And don't forget, Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg, the latest merchandise drop, sale information, and details on their next tent sale, which I believe will be happening right after the Labor Day long weekend. Looking for a great spot to watch the Jays tonight or the Bombers tomorrow? If you don't have a ticket to their 10th straight sellout, make it your local Boston Pizza. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas with the big game on the big screens with sound. Nowhere better to get together with your gang for the game than Boston Pizza. Staying at home, order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, just before we bring in Gabe, a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, NFL season is just around the corner. Huge weekend coming up in the CFL. What a great time to welcome in our pal from SportsGrid. You know him as the master of mayhem on X at Sports Rage, none other than Gabriel Morency. Gabe, what's going on? How are you?
Hey, good to see you, Hustler. Let's do this thing.
Hey, just quickly, I want to talk NFL with you, but what an insane week last week in the Canadian Football League. That was, it doesn't get much better than that.
It's been a great year in the CFL, despite Luke Wilson's judge, jury, and executioner judging whether the game was worthy of them after every game. But all kidding aside, it's been a fun season in the CFL. And, you know, the Bill Parcells line, you are what your record says you are. And he said that, and he meant that when you were halfway through the season. Then once you're at the halfway mark of a season, there's no real, but there's no ifs, ands, and buts, and candies and nuts. But this year, Hustler, in the CFL, we don't really know a lot about these teams still. This story, there's a lot of chapters that are still untold. Number one, I don't have to tell people in Winnipeg, the best team in the CFL seemingly rarely actually wins the championship to begin with, right? Number one. Number two, you know, the Toronto Argonauts have won a couple of great cups in the last, years. They weren't great in the regular season. When the Alouettes won, right, the Alouettes were better in the regular season, and they didn't win. Like, after they won, they were dominant in the regular season, and they didn't win. They weren't dominant. So where I'm going with this is, yeah, you are what your record says you are, but are the Ottawa Redblacks really are what their record says they are? Right? They're not the same team when they have Drew Brown on the field. I think the BC Lions still potentially have their best football to come because, quite truthfully, their defense can't be any worse moving forward. It can only get better. And when we see when Nate Rourke is on the field, he's capable of putting up points. He's capable of racking up 400 passing yards. The Roughriders have been super consistent. The Bombers gone through some injury problems as well. I don't think we really know the full nature of the Bombers yet. Stampeders started off strong, but it's impossible to go wire to wire in the CFL. You know, Ticats look good. Like I said, Hustler, this thing is still wide open right now. Like, absolutely still wide open. And in fact, little flyer here, the Ottawa Redblacks are like 40-1 to win the Grey Cup right now. Do I think they're going to win a Grey Cup? Probably not. But in a 9-team league, and they're 40-1. All they got to do is get in the playoffs. Anything can happen. So that's where I'm going with the CFL, Hustler. Anything can and probably will happen over the next couple of months.
Well, it's funny you bring up Ottawa. We've got them here tomorrow, and the Bombers' secondary is decimated, and they're coming in after Drew Brown threw as many touchdown passes as he had incompletions in rallying from a 22-1 deficit with a big win. So I'm with you. I think there's a lot of interesting things. And just to betting for a minute, you mentioned 40-1 on Ottawa. I think the BC Lions are going to be significantly better in the second half of the season as long as Nathan Rourke stays healthy. And we were looking at this in the lock shop earlier today, Gabe. Like over at Coolbet, Nathan Rourke is 11-1 to win the MOP. I mean, you got the three favorites of Bo, VA, and Trevor Harris. Like if the Lions barge back in or a playoff team challenge for that, listen, they're going to be doing it on the back of Nathan Rourke. I think there's a ton of value, and he is very live still in the MOP race at double digits.
And he's Canadian as well, right?
That's not going to hurt.
Exactly. So if he's on par, who votes for this? The media. Anytime that you're talking about any award, you have to think about, all right, what's the motive? What's the purpose of the voters? I agree with you. Listen, the BC Lions, if they could just sort of start to figure it out, Buck Pierce, I'm surprised. One thing, Hustler, and you guys know Buck Pierce well, I'm surprised he's been as conservative as he has been, because I didn't see that with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers over the years. I've never seen a team and a coach punt, Hustler, in the CFL on 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2 from midfield in my life as the BC Lions do. And it always comes back to hurt them. Like minutes later, the other team is right where they were if they just would have went for it anyways. But I've been surprised by the lack of aggression. Nate Rourke is the highest paid player. They don't use him often unless they're desperate and they're behind. They should be more aggressive, and that has surprised me. I don't know what their reason. We're trying to protect our defense and this and that. But if I'm the BC Lions, I just put the pedal to the metal. They're a little slow out of the gate, and there's been a ton of line movement this week for this Alouette game, guys. And, listen, I never laugh or joke about any player getting injured, Hustler. But McLeod, Bethel Thompson getting injured, like, does that really hurt the Montreal Alouettes at all?
How's that moving the line?
That's what I'm saying. And it moved 2.5 points instantly. Number one, he probably wasn't even going to start, to begin with. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what the injury is. Like suckiness, crappiness, terribleness, whatever the injury is, all kidding aside. He's been a problem for them. And one of the most lopsided rivalries, I should say, series is in the CFL has actually been BC beating Montreal. Going back, the last time Montreal beat BC in Vancouver, Hustler, was 2015. The time before that, it was 2010. The Alouettes are 14-2. The Lions are 14-2 against Montreal the last 16 times they played. It's pretty wild. They beat them 5 straight times. Montreal just does not win. And I used to do an Alouette show many years ago. And I remember then, Hustler, saying, man, the Alouettes are 4-27 all time. And they don't win in Vancouver. They just never have. I don't know. Does that have any effect on what happens this week? Point spread is a little high this week, but we crushed the CFL last week. We had a better year last year, Hustler. I've sort of been right around 500, and I give 3 picks for every game, and sort of been a tug of war. Last week though, we went 11-1, so we started to dial it up a little bit. Everything sort of fell into place, and I like the card this week as well. I like the over the Bomber Redblack game, and I think this Redblack team is dangerous. This game's going to come down to the wire, guys. So give me the points with the Ottawa Redblacks and the over. As we're only getting 3, but give me the Ticats plus the points on the road against the Roughriders. And this is sort of like saying I like the Cleveland Browns this week, or I like the New York Jets this week. The sentence never ends well. And I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, but I think the Edmonton Elks win this week, Hustler.
I had the Elks last week. I think I'm going the other side, especially with the line moving. We're seeing 3s and 3.5s out there right now. And
yeah, well, that's getting a little out of hand. I'm not laying multiple points with them. Elks, I like the more in the money line range at 130.
I'll pick them. And I'll tell you what about your Lions, Gabe. When the lines first came out this week and we saw 4.5, I'm like, okay, I will bet anybody that this is a 7 by the time it goes off. And that was, this NBT news meant nothing to me on that. And to be honest, I think I would take them anywhere under double digits if I had to make a pick on either side. I think this is BC all day right now. On one side, I think I'm with you with the exception of Hamilton. I think the Riders coming off the bye, they have played some close games, but this is a great opportunity for them to jump on. But listen, I want to pivot over to the NFL for a minute because we're now into the preseason. I know you've been hitting and talking futures quite a bit. I want to add right off the bat, futures that you saw that you could not wait to bet. A few things that are in already. Anything that stands out, whether we're talking win totals or player props that just sort of jumped off the page to you?
There are a lot. Listen, there's so many options. So obviously I'm going to like things. But full disclosure, college is up first, right? College football kicks off next Saturday. So I'm putting together my college win totals to make the playoff props. And, so you got like 134 teams or whatever now. Like, Cal Baptist, Houston Baptist, and, whatever, Bishop Gorman strip club teams and like whatever they have, right? You know what I'm saying? So there's a million college options. So I attack that first because college starts 2 weeks before the National Football League season does. But as far as the NFL is concerned, yeah, I've got my eyes on a couple of teams, a couple of scenarios here. And let's start off actually in a division. Everyone knows Hustler's a Chief fan, but this division is going to get more and more competitive right now as the years go on, right? Better coaches. Now you have a Harbaugh. Now you got a Sean Payton. Now you have a Pete Carroll. Now I think the Raiders are still probably the worst team in a division. The Slater injury obviously hurts the Chargers. Doesn't kill them, but hurts them. But I think this Denver Bronco team is for real, right? I'm not the biggest Sean Payton fan as far as his personality is concerned. I thought he was kind of a dick and the way he threw everyone on the bus. And Nate Hackett does suck, but you never seen a coach talk about, it's the worst coaching job in the history of the league. And Russell Wilson's terrible. Everybody was terrible. I know everything. I'm the smartest guy in the room. But it turns out he has been. And I don't think Bo Nix was a fluke. Bo Nix is like, I think me and Hustler are the same age as Bo Nix. So, like, it's not like Bo Nix is a kid and and is going to be like, it was a fluke in the NFL. No, right? Like, it's interesting. Teams don't like drafting guys that are like 25 and stuff, 26 years old that have been around, right? But Bo Nix had the most college starts out of anyone in NCAA history, and he played in big-time games. And one thing with Bo Nix, he really did get better, right? Like, he really did from where he started and where he is now. He continues to improve, and I think he will. If you look at the second half of the season last year, guys, especially the last 8 games, like he struggled like all rookies early. Second half of the season, that their offense really started to dial it up a notch. They were lacking a legitimate ground game. Peyton seemingly has done a nice job drafting players. They bring in this kid, R.J. Harvey, out of Virginia. Virginia Cavaliers has good hands out of the backfield. We know that, Sutton is a stud and ready to break out. Their defense, Hustler, gave up the 3rd least points in the National Football League last year, 7th least yards allowed. To me, this is just a Bronco team. Their win total is 9.5. They won 10 games last year. To me, they're not regressing, right? I don't think this team is regressing. I think they're getting better. And do they win 10 again? Yes. Do they win 11? Probably, right? I think this is an 11-win team for the Denver Broncos, and it's plus 100 over 9.5 as well. There's no juice on it. So I do like the Denver Bronco win total to the over. I like the Atlanta Falcons this year, guys. And that's another one. Listen, you have to be ahead of the trend, right? You don't want to be a day late and dollar short. I'm a big Michael Penix fan. I think Penix is another one, Hustler. Not a young kid, right? I mean, a guy, he transferred, he had injury issues, took a while to develop. But we're talking about a player that played in a national championship game, right? He lit it up with the Washington Huskies, played against the Michigan Wolverines. He's played in the national title game, played in big games before, and just has a cannon for an arm. Like, this kid throws fastballs. He's like J.R. Richard, like throwing a baseball. Like, the ball just comes in fast. You know how many times, man, Atlanta Falcon wide receivers were wide open last year, but Cousins couldn't get him the ball because he's lost his zip, right? He was floating balls in. They're getting knocked down. They're getting picked off. Now you got a quarterback with some zip. We know that Robinson is a stud. They just have to unleash this, and don't be conservative with the play calling. And I'll tell you what, guys, from a prop perspective, Michael Penix, 19.5 touchdowns. Come on. Quarterbacks that don't even throw that much can throw for 20 or more touchdowns in the NFL. And Drake London, Hustler, fantasy players, prop players, Drake London's going to go off this year. A couple other quick ones. Dak Prescott, I'm not a big fan of individual player props in the NFL because, an injury and you're dead and you lose your money. And it's happened to me before. But when Dak Prescott is healthy, he goes over. Like, his passing yard prop, Mike Evans is automatic 1,000 yards every year of his freaking career. And it's less than 1,000 yards, his prop. So I like the Mike Evans prop, but I'm not a massive individual player prop hustler guy for futures. I hammer the card, and I've got a million of them every Sunday as far as on game day. But season props, I got screwed on a Derrick Henry to win the rushing title once. And he was up. He got injured. Like, I've been pinched too many times, hustler, with player props, so I don't get too crazy with them. Like baseball, I do home run props and stuff, but football, I don't love the season ones. I love the game day props.
Last year, we did an experiment. And again, it would have been better if we did 100 of them, but we did 10. And just randomly took player props and bet under on every single one of them. Well, by the time we got to the midway point of the season, 4 of them were basically already in because the guys weren't playing anymore, and even if they came back. So you got to pick those overs carefully and have some good fortune as well with the guys to be able to play.
You guys talk hockey. I know you're not averse to talking hockey on the show. Just a random. I saw a bet. You can get like plus 400 that Skinner will not be the goalie in the Oilers season opener. No, I don't think Ken Dryden's coming out of retirement. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't think there's some blockbuster, Carey Price unretired and he's going to be the goalie. He could get hurt, though. I don't want to be a jerk, but, right, you just sort of, there was an Anthony Richardson one where Daniel Jones was like plus 180 to be the starting quarterback in week 1. I didn't even care about their little battle, hustler. Richardson gets hurt all the time. So I love where you go with that. Like, you just roll the board and watch one by one like Seinfeld. Not to be a jerk, but when you see the injury, you're on the couch. That's a shame. With the popcorn, that's a shame.
I can almost guarantee you, just spray it on unders and you'll probably
look at the CFL, bro. Half the quarterbacks have been out this year.
Listen, that is totally, and it was the case last year as well, which is why, we all of a sudden are talking about position players like Brady Oliveira winning the MOP. NFC, Detroit had that amazing season last year, as did the Vikes. To me, that NFC North is so interesting. Do you think Detroit takes a step back? And I'm just looking right now. Coolbet's got the Lions plus 150, Pack plus 250, Vikings 3-1, Bears 5-1. Where are you throwing your nickel in the NFC North?
You know what? I like this Minnesota Viking team with J.J. McCarthy. I am a pro J.J. McCarthy guy. Yet the odds makers have caught on to this. Their win total last year was 6.5, the Vikings?
Yeah.
Literally. This year it's 9.5. So you got McCarthy coming in. They need to win 10 games to win the bet. You're right. This is an interesting division. I'm kind of in the minority on this, hustler. I don't think it's the end of the world that the Detroit Lions lost their coordinators. I think players matter more than coordinators. That's all you hear, the low-hanging fruit. They lost Aaron Glenn. No, Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson. I don't care. I care about the real Ben Johnson, the fast one. I'm not a cheetah.
Hutchinson back.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Would you rather have Aaron Glenn or Aiden Hutchinson? I'd rather have Aiden Hutchinson back. Right? No disrespect to Aaron Glenn. And as far as their offense is concerned, Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't need Ben Johnson to be good, hustler. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jahmyr Gibbs is good. That offense is good. I don't know if they have that next level in them where they can get, I said a couple of weeks ago, I said, I'm going to call a Buffalo and Detroit Super Bowl. And a little bit of synergy here. Where did Jared Goff play college football? Cal, Super Bowl in the Bay Area. Josh Allen from the Bay Area. This is his hometown Super Bowl. It's the Lions have never made it to the Super Bowl. We know the Bills' history. So I am pro Lions, but it is a super competitive division. I'm starting, and I like Jordan Love. I think the Packers might just be who they are, right? Do they have that next level where they're going to win multiple games in the playoffs? I'm not so sure. I think, it just might be just another team, like a modern Dallas Cowboys, so to speak. So I'm not coming into this, and I like the Packers season win total last year, the over. And I'm not saying they're going to be bad or anything. I was talking in a real bigger picture here. Are they like Super Bowl contenders? I don't think so. And I think the Detroit Lions are. The Bears, bro, whatever, dude. Like, go and prove it. You know what I mean? You know, every year, this, and that with the Bears hype. I'm not in on the Bears hype. Vikings, I think, are a playoff caliber team. I like J.J. McCarthy, but the odds makers, you got to win 10 games. So I do think the Detroit Lions are going to win the division again, Hustler.
Hey, you mentioned the Falcons. What do you think about the Falcons at plus 225 to win the South?
I like it. Listen, Tampa have won 4 in a row, kind of under the radar, right? People wouldn't, which team has won 4 divisions in a row? Yeah, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have. And people thought, the sky was going to fall. You hear all their coaching, and they're so this and they're that, and they're old. Man, there's a lot of hype about the rookie wide receiver out of Ohio State, Ibuke. He's a badass. So it's like they sort of get who they are. That's the one thing with the Bucs. They kind of know who they are, right? We're going to throw the ball. We want some stud wide receivers. We're going to play good defense. We don't have much of a running game. But I think that the Buccaneers have been a little bit of a benefactor of playing in such a bad division over the years. So let's not go crazy. They're a good team. They don't really beat other good teams. They were sort of beat up on bad teams. But I think Atlanta are ready to turn the corner and compete for this division. If you recall last year, guys, we were in the final weeks of the season, and Atlanta were right there. And Kirk Cousins sucked rocks, okay? And they finally put Penix in, and what happened? They nearly beat the Washington Commanders on the road in a track meet in like Penix's second career game, right? I remember Penix started at home. He didn't really do much. They ran the ball a lot. They won the game. And then they started him on like the road in that massive one against Washington. And he played well, right? They're right there. So to me, Tampa are good. I'm not dismissing them, but they got that first place schedule. It's a tricky schedule for the Buccaneers. They do have some injury concerns. I wonder about depth with the Bucs, and I do buy in that the Falcons are the real deal. So I love the Falcons over the 7.5. I do like that plus 220 for the Falcons to win the division. And as long as we're in this division right now, I'm always a fan, Hustler, of who's going to be the worst team in the National Football League prop, right? You can bet on who's going to be the worst, and I like that. I like the negativity of it. And if you look at the odds, it's somewhat surprising that the New York Giants and New Orleans Saints have the same odds. And the Cleveland Browns are the third choice. So it's like plus 400, plus 400, plus 450 type of deal. So you can get plus 400 guys that the New Orleans Saints are going to be the worst team in the National Football League. And quite frankly, I don't see how they're not, right? Cleveland have some good players. They play in a tougher division, but Cleveland will win 3-4 games, right? They're going to win a few games. The New York Giants are actually going in the right direction, guys. You got Russell Wilson to start the year. They transitioned into Jackson Dart. Malik Neighbors is a stud. You brought in Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State. Like, you got Abdul Carter. You got Burns. You got Thibodeau. Like, the Giants actually might be a surprise team and be good, to be honest with you. They're not going to be the worst team in the NFL. The worst team in the NFL is in the Bayou. There's no disputing this. Like,
the quarterback room is so ugly.
Dude, Hustler, their win total is 5.5. You're going to win 6 games with Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck as your quarterback? Shuck you are.
Hey, Gabe, before we go, Connor and I were talking at the beginning of the show.
They want to be bad. Kellen Moore's not on the hot seat. They have the worst contracts, the car stuff. They got a bunch of old dudes. Kamara's almost like Bradley Beal, where he's good. He doesn't want to. No, but like he doesn't want to leave. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, Alvin, maybe you should play for the Broncos or what? You want to win a Super Bowl? He's like, no, I'm good, bro. Like, you know what I mean?
I like New Orleans. I like it here. We're good.
Yeah, he's like, no, I like it here. I'm good. I've already won. I'm happy. Like, I've won. I'm rich. I'm good. Like, he's not like you have these players there that aren't in a rush to leave. But Kellen Moore has got to get young. And listen, Arch Manning, is he going to be in a draft next year or not? I'll tell you what, I think the Saints will be bad for 2 years to get Arch Manning. That's what they want. And the Mannings
100%.
want Arch Manning to be a New Orleans Saint. I'm not saying he won't play for any other team, but it sets itself up perfectly for this. I've even heard they're big Kellen Moore fans and the Saints. So what I'm saying is Kellen Moore's not even going to be trying to win games. He'll be happy to get the number 1 pick of the draft.
Yeah, and you know what? Archie Manning, the patriarch of the family, said that, in 2026, Arch is going to be going to Texas. The one thing I think that could change that is if, as we expect, the Saints are the worst team in the league and they're the number 1 team, and that might change the decision to potentially go out. Hey, before we go, I want to ask you about the Rams and Matt Stafford. Our pal Mayo has a boost over at CoolBet for the Rams under 9.5 wins at plus 150. If Matt Stafford's there, this is a contending team. If he's not there, I do wonder how concerned should Rams fans be about Matt Stafford right now? And I mean, if you had to go on either side of 9.5 and a playoff spot for the Rams, where are you in?
I would still lean to the over. I thought Stafford was kind of done a couple of years ago. I'm not going to overreact now. I don't think the Rams would have did the deal that they did if they thought that he wasn't going to be ready. We still have 3 weeks. It's a concern for them. But one thing about the Rams, right? Sean McVay is kind of the face of the team. People think of him in an offensive way, but their defense is badass, Hustler. And they actually run the ball now. So they have a different identity. So I think the Rams will be fine. I think they get to 10. But sort of like we were talking about the CFL, I find this NFC West to be one of the most fascinating divisions in the league coming into the year this year. San Francisco are good, but they're older. They're injury prone. Rams, we just talked about Matthew Stafford. Arizona, I think, are ready to take that next step, but are they ready to take 2 or 3 steps? Seattle, I don't know about Seattle, right? Seattle could be 10-7. It could be 7-10. This division, to me, very, very interesting and wide open.
Gabe Morency, follow him on X at Sports Rage. Gabe, what's going on with the grid? You're now available on pod every day. Fill people in on where the content's coming.
Yeah, I saw. You know what? I never looked at podcast rankings before ever. So I saw them before. Congratulations, Hustler. You guys are doing very well.
Oh, thanks.
I've got some work to do in the podcast world, but yeah, you know what? We've been doing this 20, going on 25 years, 24 years, Sports Rage, and these shows. There's different formats, times, right? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, Sports Rage, we're doing a daily podcast now, but we're still on. We're on weeknights from 8 till 10. We're going to be on every Sunday night during the NFL games from 8 till midnight, and we're on every Saturday from noon until 3, starting next Saturday when college football kicks off. So we're actually on 7 days a week, Hustler, just all kinds of different formats and times and stuff.
Hey, do me a favor. Speaking of the grid, did I see my old pal Dubsy just put a ring on Megan Payton, Sean Payton's daughter? I think I did
not know that. I did not know that.
Dude, that check the gram. I know you're an X guy. You got to check Instagram.
And I know them both.
So,
I know them both.
That's why.
I did not know. So, yeah, I was unaware.
When you talk to Dubsy, tell him that his friends in the Peg Hustler says congratulations. And, yeah, well, I actually met Megan with you and Cam when we were in Vegas for the NFL draft that time, and you guys were set up at MGM.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't realize that that's Sean Payton's daughter, actually. And she's very smart with football, too. She knows a lot.
Sharp.
She's actually really good. She's really, really, really good. She knows a lot whatever. She's Sean Payton's daughter. So, she's been around the game.
No doubt. Well, anyways, there's your breaking news from your own Sports Grid. Dubsy.
Well, congratulations to our boy Dubsy.
He's a beauty. Hey, pal, thanks so much for doing this. Let's catch up again soon as we get closer to NFL kickoff. Have a great one, pal.
Hey, you're the best, Hustler. Always good.
Appreciate you, dude. There he is, Gabe Morency at Sports Rage. If you're not already following him, what the hell are you waiting for? Always entertaining. All right, listen. We're going to bring in, actually, let's, we got to get to our ASD picks and cool bet lines. But let's get Connor back in here for a minute. First of all, Connor, how good is Gabe? The energy of Morency, and I know you're a little younger, he has been doing this, and he is the realest in the game since you were just out of the womb. But I just talked to Gabe, and I get so ready for our Friday pick shows and everything else coming up over the next few weeks before kickoff.
I love the shuck you. It's like the Saints are going to be so bad. Tyler Shuck? Yeah, no way. Oh, I love it. Yeah, he's full of passion, that guy. He loves talking sports, loves talking NFL, and he's always a welcome guest here on the show. I love having him on.
No doubt. Okay, listen, I'm sure you heard it earlier. We were talking with Mike about Kyle Connor. And again, give it to us. This is August to make 30 minutes of content and conversation about a nothing burger like we just had. But I did ask. I saw Nick in the chat. I knew he'd have a good answer, a passionate take, as well as many, about if the Jets found themselves in a scenario where they might have to cut bait and try and recoup assets for Kyle Connor, being worried that he would leave, what it would be. Let's get to fan feedback, and I'll get your comments on this as well. Of course, fan feedback's brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market with no added fees, nothing beyond what you see on the site when you buy it. And of course, with Bomber games sold out every single time they play, good news, Bomber games on Fans First. So if you're desperate for a pair of seats, you can head over there and see what's cooking for tomorrow nights. Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. All right, so Nick was right there. And listen, he makes a good point, and I agree. I don't think there's a scenario you trade Connor and get better this coming year. But the next couple years, I see this similar to 2015-16. He did mention, I think they take a step back regardless, at least in the regular season. I think that's realistic. I mean, there's only one way to go after you win the President's Trophy. Did suggest a home run from Detroit, Lucas Raymond. More likely to see Marco Casper, Carter Bear types, and picks moving forward. Would love to take a first off of them. Here's a few other ones. And he just mentions you'll win the trade long-term, but not short. Let's see here. Rob Mahoney, trading a superstar who wants to stay is a ridiculous proposition. Many people will want to do that. T. Will said the Jets won't do that. They're terrified to take any step backwards for any reason. Well, listen, to be honest, I mean, now ain't the time to take a big step back. I don't think that's the goal of anyone's, and why would you want to? Let's see what else we've got. There's a few others in here. But the bottom line is that I think people love Kyle Connor, would love to see him stick around. But I'll put this to you. I mean, if things weren't maybe as rosy as many people have been led to believe, and we get into the start of the season and there's no deal, and if they felt they had to explore that, what do you think makes sense? What would be in the best interest of the Winnipeg Jets if they had to trade such a valuable asset of their best goal scorer and most important and effective offensive player?
This is where I'm at with this. And Marco Casper, shout out Nick for being in chat today. Always love when he pops by. Him bringing up a player like that, in my opinion, is what the Winnipeg Jets would be looking for in a package. Now, not Marco Casper on his own, but if you're trading Kyle Connor, I would be looking for NHL ready players that can make an impact right now up in your lineup that are young. So it's not necessarily a rebuild. You're not trading Kyle Connor for 3 first-round picks, and then those players aren't sniffing the NHL until Connor Hellebuyck is 37 years old. And it's like, what are we doing here? Connor Hellebuyck is 32. He's an reigning MVP, Hart Trophy winner, back-to-back Vezina winner. If you traded for a package centered around a player that's in that 22 to 25-year-old range and it is effective forward, primarily a forward. I mean, the Jets on defense, if you're looking at the right side, maybe, but that's, I think, where they would look if they're looking to make a trade for Kyle Connor. Yes, I don't think you'd be able to replace his 40 goals and 90 points with one player coming back, but a package centered around 1, maybe 2 effective middle to top 6 young forwards, I think that have room to improve, right? Like players that are middle 6 young players right now, but can be top 6 players in the next couple of years, I think is where Nick is going with that. I think if push comes to shove and Kyle Connor is asking for 12.5 million, and the Jets are uncomfortable with paying that, I think that's the direction they should look. But I agree. If the goal is to win the Stanley Cup this very next season, I don't see a way in which you trade Kyle Connor and get closer to that goal.
Yeah, I'm with you. But at the same time, I think thinking big picture and realizing that only one team wins the cup, as much as I said before, I wouldn't have done anything different last year with where the team was and what was happening with Nikolai Ehlers. I still held out hope that there might have been a way that they could re-sign him. Obviously, that didn't happen. But if they feel that it's not going to happen, to me, that's not a chance you can take, because I think that it sets you up for losing two incredibly important players for nothing with an aging roster, and it makes it very, very hard to refill the funnel if you don't make a move like that eventually.
Let me just say real quick as well, I 100% agree with you. They can't have a repeat of the Ehlers situation. And when we say that, or people online say that, people take it as like, oh, they should have traded Ehlers. No, I'm not there. Yeah. Like people will say, oh, they should have traded him at the deadline if they knew he wasn't coming back. A President's Trophy team keeping Nikolai Ehlers as a self-rental made sense at the time. It sucks that he left. I still think it made sense. If you're either going to trade him in the offseason and try and get a big haul for him, or you let him walk and you keep him as a self-rental. A player like Kyle Connor, who's not getting $8 million on the open market, he would get 12 if he hit the open market next offseason with the cap going up even more. That's a player that you can't trade at the deadline. You can't let hit the open market. You need to have closure on him being signed long-term or traded as we get into the season here. But don't take us saying, oh, you can't have a repeat Nikolai Ehlers situation as they should have traded Nikolai Ehlers at the deadline. That's not what I think anyone means by that.
No, for sure. Well, as I said, I mean, this is something that just kind of came up today after that bit from Frank. But I will tell you that I have a feeling it's probably more likely we're hearing that negotiations are underway. And I kind of, listen, trade talk is super fun and it's good for business around these parts. But I mean, Kyle Connor is a pretty damn important part. And I realize there is a risk later on in the contract, but that is sort of where the Jets are at right now with what they've committed to particular players. And, anyways, it'll give us lots of fodder until something's done one way or the other around here on WST. Goldeyes are back tonight in action. Big win last night against Cleburne. Brilliant pitching performance by the Fish. A 2-0 win. I cannot wait. I'm getting to the ballpark tonight with a bunch of friends. Should be a good one. 6:30 start tonight for the Fish against Cleburne, their lone road trip of the year north of the border here to Winnipeg. Goldeyes.com for tickets. 982 base, and looks pretty nice inside. Perfect night for a ball game before, of course, tomorrow night's big Bomber game. Although the Fish also are back at home tomorrow to finish up that series down at Blue Cross Park. We'll get to Assiniboine Downs in a minute. We did get into some picks for the BMW Championship. That's what's happening this week. And our Breezy Bend Golf Reports will be focusing on the FedEx Cup playoffs. Next week, of course, we're at Breezy Bend all week starting Tuesday for the Manitoba Open. If you want information on the Open, head over to manitobaopen.com for tickets. Don't forget, kids under 18 free all week and weekend long. And all kids get a free hot dog, drink, and chips on Saturday as well for their family fun day out at the Manitoba Open. More information there. And of course, you can check out breezybend.ca for more information on Breezy Bend. Before we get to the cool bet lines, let's quickly check out what's going on. Remo and I were 0 for last night at the track. So it's time to get things going again. Tonight, I like number 4, Rise Again, in race number 1. Tonight, in race number 3, we're looking at number 4, Bander Azteca, and Totalizer, number 7. And I guess we'll put that on with a designated hitter. So a 1-4-7 triactor. I'm just going to make sure I get that in right now before I forget. 1-4-7. And of course, you can do this over at hpibet.com. Race number 5. Great slate. This is there's one scratch, but still 9 in the race. The favorite is Better Luck Next Time. We'll certainly have Better Luck Next Time. Going to roll in also with Attaboy Cookie and number 3, Tempting Prospect. And then the final picks of the night are going to be in the final race. We're going to ride with number 5, Amplify, to win the race. And I think we'll also put in a triactor with Amplify along with Mama's Edition, number 4, and number 8, Turn It Loose. 2 big scratches, including the heavy favorite Hibernation. So the lines are going to move quite a bit on that. 7:30 is post time tonight at Assiniboia Downs. Free admission, free parking. Get down there, and if you're lucky, maybe take a pop into the dining room and jump on that prime rib buffet. You can make reservations for that for every night of live racing out at Assiniboia Downs, Tuesdays and Wednesdays throughout the rest of September into October. And there will be Monday racing coming up on Monday, August 25th, if you're looking for a good Monday to head out. All right, let's get to the cool bet lines for tonight, and we will start it off with the Blue Jays. Connor, how about that scene last night in Toronto? Our pal Johnny Junta and the Gate 14 crew are going to be joining us. He's going to be joining us on Friday. They had their version of their WST section, a whole bunch of them up at the top of the 500s. And there was Mark Shapiro rolling up, high-fiving all the fans, getting to the top row of the stadium where Johnny and Avery were, just as Ernie Clement hits a home run last night. Man, the vibes could not be higher in Toronto, and especially with those guys.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And with the Jays being good, I've been taking in more Blue Jays content this year. And the Gate 14 guys and Johnny in particular, just hilarious stuff. Great, fan interaction. And as you see, I mean, they had their version of the WST night, just like you said. And I saw your tweet, Huss, that we'll have to get Chevy to get to come by the WST section for one of our WST nights. But yeah, that was a pretty cool scene. And then he was walking up the stairs as Ernie Clement hits a 3-run bomb, which was like the biggest play of the game. And everyone was going nuts. So that was, I mean, nothing's going wrong with the Jays right now. They're such a fun watch. And it's Kevin Gausman back on the bump tonight. So I'll be tuning in for sure.
I don't know whether we'll be able to get Chevy to roll up at a TV timeout and join us in row 12 of 316, maybe just as Cole Perfetti scores and we have a big mob scene up there. But
right.
Wouldn't be surprised. I'm appreciative that Shapiro has made the example and started up, and good things have followed. So maybe, just maybe, we'll work on something on that. By the way, speaking of the WST pack and tickets, we'll have information next week on that. Heading down to the offices tomorrow to meet with some of the Jets folks to figure that out, and stay tuned on that. Looking to make it even bigger and better this year. As far as tonight's game goes, round 2 of this series, Gausman versus Cade Horton, who's had a great season for the Cubs. Cubs plus 113. Jays, just a juggernaut right now. First AL team to 70 wins, minus 133. They're 20 games above 500. And if you're looking for a homer prop tonight, looking at the usual suspects, Vladdy Jr. is plus 366. Bo Bichette plus 421 tonight. Addison Barger plus 446. Update on the CFL lines. We have had a little movement from yesterday. The Bombers are down to 5-point favorites. That one opened at 6. The Elks are now 3-point favorites over the Toronto Argonauts. It's a little rich for my blood. I don't think the Elks should be favored by 3 points against literally anybody. And I think the Argos are better than that, but no, we'll see. Saskatchewan, 3.5 points. That's been pretty steady at Cool Bet all week. And as we mentioned with Gabe, what was a 4.5 point spread for BC is now at 6.5, which has changed our parlay a little bit. I think I got in at the best time yesterday after one of the line movements. It was over 8-1. And right now there has been some movement with the Elks game, but also with the BC game. So we've got Toronto plus 1.5 in that game. We've got Saskatchewan minus 3.5, and we've got BC minus 4.5 Obviously, right now, Toronto's actually +3 and BC is -6.5. So plus 572 is what it comes in if you did it yourself. If you take advantage of our CFL 110 boost, plus 667. That is in the combo cards right now. I'm just looking to see what else we've got tonight. Oh, Otani 2 hits and a stolen base, 14-1. I don't mind that, to be honest with you.
He's pitching
We got a
tonight
home
too.
cooking home. Oh, is he really? Maybe he won't be
He's
stealing
the
this much.
MLB.com probable starter tonight. So Shohei Otani pitch day.
I love it. You know, while we're at it, let's just quickly check out, where is that game? MLB, Dodgers, Angels. I did go to a Dodgers Angels once in LA. That's always very interesting crowd when those two fan bases come together. Otani over 5.5 strikeouts, -115. Otani earned runs under 1.5, -182. Otani hits and walks or hits allowed over 2.5, -169, over 3.5, +167, over 4.5, +357. Thing about Otani is sometimes they'll just pull him out earlier than normal players because obviously they want to keep him fresh because he's got a lot of other work to do. So much going on at CoolBet. By the way, keep your entries coming in. If you play at CoolBet, screen cap any $10 bet and send it in along with your CoolBet username and your contact information to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com. We will do a special marble race a week Friday with everyone entered, and the winner will get 2 seats on the Huss bus and the 1930 crew, our trip to Labor Day, you and a friend, transport to Regina, downtown hotel, tickets to the game, transport to the game. We've got a dinner for everybody on Saturday night. Going to be amazing. And if you haven't already booked your ticket, you don't want to count on winning one, get over to the 1930 crew. There's a couple spots left available before it is all said and done, wrecked up. How you feel about the Jays tonight? You're going to keep on rolling at the Dome?
Can't bet against the Jays right now. Not with Shapiro like walking up sections, autographing random things, and the bats just red hot. And it seems like the bullpen's coming together too. Varland pitched an inning last night. Jeff Hoffman 3 up, 3 down, which was a pleasant sight after his outing against the Dodgers on Sunday. So I'm riding with the Jays tonight. Kevin Gausman, 8-8 this season is his record, but he's got a 3.85 ERA and 135 strikeouts. So he's having a good year and just really not getting the win-loss luck, as we see with some other pitchers around the league. I mean, Paul Skeens got lit up the other day, but he's kind of the poster boy for that. But yeah, I'm excited for this Jays game tonight. Like I said on yesterday's show, been watching a lot more Blue Jays baseball this summer, and it seems like the summer's flying by because there's something to look forward to every single night with the Jays on.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's so different having a team that's not only contending, but right there every game. I mean, I still can't get over that game on Sunday against the Dodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the most epic regular season games I can remember. And this should be another one. The Cubs are really good too. So they're at it tonight, just after 6 p.m. Gonna head down to the ballpark. I was hoping we'd have a feathers and fins combo, a Goldeyes Jays prop.
It hit yesterday.
Myself. Of course it did. It hit yesterday, and I'm hoping it hits again tonight. But it'll be good. We got a fun show tomorrow. Of course, it is game day. We'll have a game day show. Connor and I will give our thoughts and dive right into it. Marshall Ferguson, who's calling the game, is going to join us at 1:30. And Jeff Hamilton, the Hammer, will pop on with his thoughts on tonight's game. For more, myself and Hammer on the CFL 110 is up right now. We did it live this morning. If you're with us right now and you missed it, why don't you go check it out? Leave a comment. That always helps us out, and give a thumbs up to the episode. And Mike Sando of The Athletic, with his quarterback tiers piece, is going to join us as well. I'm looking forward to that, talking a little NFL with Mike. And we'll have the latest on the Blue Jays as well. And then Friday's going to be fun. We'll wrap the Bomber game with Taylor Allen. Johnny Gento will join us. We will talk some NFL with Hacksaw. So getting closer to Labor Day, closer to hockey training camps, but there's still a lot going on right now. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. Lots of fun with Gabe Morency, one of my favorites, Mike McIntyre, Justin Dunk, and of course, Connor. got a nice night for a ball game or some horse racing. And then tomorrow, it's all about 7:30 kickoff at Princess Auto Stadium. Huge game for Winnipeg and Ottawa.
Yeah, I share your thoughts that you said earlier in the show that you didn't think this mid-August Thursday night home game against Ottawa would have such big crossover implications, but here we are. This is the spot the Bombers find themselves in. So it's a big game tomorrow. I'm looking forward to watching the Jays tonight. Otani on the bump for the Dodgers as well. Otani pitch day is always a fun game to tune in to late at night, as well as they're in LA taking on the Angels. And I'm also watching this weather report tonight, Huss. Some chances for thunderstorms tomorrow night. I know we were on air quality watch the last time the Bombers had a home game. Now we're on thunderstorm watch. So we'll see when we wake up tomorrow what the weather looks like for tomorrow night. Hopefully those thunderstorms miss Princess Auto Stadium.
Yeah, high of 28 tomorrow. What do we have here from Environment Canada? Mix of sun and cloud, 30% chance of showers early in the morning, 60 late in the afternoon, risk of a thunderstorm, local smoke. Hopefully that local smoke will be off of Zach Caleros' arm and off the cannon in the end zone for the Bombers getting some touchdowns.
Nice.
We'll break it all down tomorrow, beginning at 1 p.m. Everyone, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks to a guest and all the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Special thanks to Andrew Zalondek, doing a great job while Remus is away. And Connor, have a good one, and we'll fire it up again tomorrow on a game day edition of WST. I can't wait. Everyone, thanks for hanging out. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. right here to get ready for Bombers Redblacks on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.